Most older men don't realize this. When a younger woman smiles at you in passing, it's not always what you think. It's not just politeness. It's not always flirtation. And no, it's not pity either. Sometimes it's respect, admiration, even curiosity. Why? Because there's something different about you. You carry weight. Not just physical years, but experiences. Scars that taught you lessons, humanes that broke you. Break and end you. Younger women live in a world that's fast, loud, and often fake. They swipe through filtered illusions all day. So when they pass by a man who doesn't chase validation, who isn't trying to impress, who just is solid, still, and self-assured, it registers. That's why they smile, because in you they see something rare. Masculinity without bravado, confidence without noise, strength without insecurity. It's the man who opens doors, not just the physical kind, but the doors of stability, protection, and purpose. It's the man who doesn't have to say much to be felt, who stands tall, not for attention, but because he knows who he is. But here's the catch. This power only works if you wear your age like armor, not like a wound. If you've grown bitter, if you've given up, if you've allowed regret to shape your face, then the smile won't come. You'll be invisible. But if you stand in your truth, own your journey, and walk with purpose, then you are unforgettable. So next time you see her smile, don't shrink, don't overthink it. Stand tall, nod, and keep walking. Because what you carry, she noticed. And brother, that's no accident. Confidence matures with age, and it shows in ways most people overlook until they've lived through it themselves. When you're young, confidence often comes wrapped in bravado. It's loud, it's flashy, it's trying to prove something. But real confidence, the kind that makes people pause, respect you, and feel drawn to you without knowing why, only comes from living. It's not built in gyms or by reciting affirmations in the mirror. It's built in heartbreaks, failures, quiet victories, and the grind of years that taught you who you are when no one is watching. An older man walks differently. He doesn't rush to impress. He's not constantly looking around for approval. He's not in a competition with every other man in the room. His value isn't tied to whether people like him today. That difference in energy, it's subtle, but it's powerful. That's what younger women often notice. It's not about the gray in the beard or the lines on the face. It's the weight of presence. It's knowing you don't need to chase anyone to be validated. You've already been through the fire. You know what matters, and more importantly, what doesn't. Younger men often try to emulate confidence by being louder, tougher, more dominant. They puff their chest, they try to command attention with force, but they don't realize true confidence doesn't need to raise its voice. It doesn't enter a room needing to be seen. It walks in and the room feels it. That's the maturity that age brings. A man who's been through life and still stands tall, he doesn't need to prove he's strong. He just is. When a younger woman sees that kind of man, her instincts recognize something primal. It's safety, it's steadiness, it's a contrast to the noise and chaos she's used to. He's not distracted. He's not insecure. He's not bouncing from one identity to the next, trying to figure himself out. He's grounded. And that kind of presence is rare. It's magnetic, not because it's loud, but because it's real. And that realism comes from surviving enough to stop pretending. In youth, we play roles. We want to be seen a certain way, admired, envied. But life has a way of stripping away the masks. Pain teaches you, loss humbles you, responsibility refines you. And over time, what's left is a man who doesn't bluff anymore. He means what he says. He listens more than he talks. And when he does speak, people lean in, not because of the volume, but because of the weight in his words. Confidence with age isn't just about presence, it's about peace. An older man has seen enough to stop fearing what he can't control. He no longer panics over what others think. He's not trying to be someone else. He's settled into his skin. That's a power few men reach, and it shows in his posture, in his eye contact, in how he treats people. There's no desperation, only decisiveness. He knows rejection won't kill him. He's been told no before. He's lost people. He's been through seasons where life didn't make sense, and yet he's still here. That calmness, it's rare in the modern world. It's rare because most people haven't suffered enough to become silent. But the older man has, and out of that silence comes presence. That's why younger women smile, because that kind of man gives off an energy that feels safe and powerful at the same time. Younger women aren't always looking for flash, they're surrounded by it every day. But a man who radiates internal confidence, he stands out. He doesn't rush, he doesn't chase, he doesn't fumble. He carries himself like a man who knows his worth. And that makes people curious. It's not arrogance, it's assurance. It's knowing he can walk away from anything that doesn't align with his peace, and he won't flinch when he does. You can't fake that kind of confidence. You can't pretend you've lived when you haven't. Time teaches it, life teaches it. And when you've spent decades becoming a man who can look himself in the mirror without regret, you don't need approval, you just are. That's what the smile is about. It's not always attraction. Sometimes it's recognition. A younger woman sees that energy and knows this man has depth. This man has weathered storms. And somehow that makes her feel more seen than any pickup line ever could. Confidence that matures with age isn't loud, it's earned. You earn it by enduring. You earn it by doing hard things without applause, by facing seasons of uncertainty and standing tall anyway. And eventually, the world notices. Not because you're begging for attention, but because your stillness commands it. So if you're an older man wondering why younger women smile at you, understand this. It's not random. It's not pity. It's not fantasy. It's because you carry something they can feel even if they can't explain it. That's the power of matured confidence. That's what makes you unforgettable. Wisdom is magnetic in a way that defies surface attraction. It's not loud. It doesn't need to dress itself up or shout to be noticed. It sits quietly, patiently, and confidently, knowing that those who are meant to feel its pull will. And when they do, it creates an almost unexplainable draw, a gravity that pulls people in, not through force, but through presence. Wisdom doesn't demand, it attracts. And when a man has lived enough, failed enough, and reflected deeply enough, he begins to emit a quiet power that others, especially younger women, can sense, even if they can't articulate it. Its kind of wisdom isn't gathered from books alone. It's born from experience, the kind you earn through mistakes, heartbreaks, difficult choices, and long nights wrestling with the consequences of your actions. A man who has walked through pain and come out with insight, not bitterness, becomes a rare breed. He doesn't just know things, he understands them. He doesn't just speak from theory, he speaks from truth lived and proven. And that's what makes him magnetic. People trust what's real. They lean into it because they're starved for authenticity in a world drowning in surface level everything. Women, whether they realize it consciously or not, are highly attuned to energy. They can spot insecurity, they can sense neediness, and they can feel when a man knows himself on a deep level. Wisdom shows in how a man listens, not just with his ears, but with his eyes, his presence, his silence. He's not waiting to speak, he's absorbing. He's not distracted, he's focused. And when he finally says something, it's rarely wasted. He chooses his words because he understands their impact. That kind of communication, calm and intentional, is captivating. In a world where most people are reactive, a wise man is responsive. He doesn't panic. He doesn't get pulled into drama. He can hold space for chaos and still remain centered. That quality alone is rare enough to draw others in. A younger woman may be surrounded by men her age who are easily flustered, who overreact, who let their emotions or egos drive their decisions. But when she encounters a man who remains composed, who doesn't need to dominate the room to feel powerful, he becomes unforgettable. Wisdom also creates a sense of emotional safety. It allows a man to be both strong and soft, both assertive and compassionate. He doesn't try to impress with things, he impresses with depth. He sees people clearly, not through a lens of what they can offer him, but through an awareness of who they really are. And when a woman feels seen, not for her appearance or what she can give, but for her soul, that creates a powerful connection. It's not just rare, it's disarming. It bypasses the surface and goes straight to the heart. There's also a certain mystery to wisdom. A man who has lived deeply doesn't put everything on display. He's not trying to sell himself. He's not over-explaining. He's learned the value of restraint. And that restraint, the deliberate holding back of stories, of details, of personal truths, creates a vacuum. People are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand, especially when it feels safe and grounded. It makes others want to lean in, to learn more, to discover the layers behind the calm eyes and quiet demeanor. A wise man's body language tells a story too. He moves with intention. He doesn't fidget. He doesn't rush. He isn't anxious to fill silence. He allows it. He uses it. And in doing so, he signals control, not the aggressive kind, but the inner kind, the kind that says, I've been through worse than this moment, and I'm not shaken. That kind of stability is incredibly appealing, especially to someone who is used to unpredictability and immaturity. Wisdom also means knowing when to walk away, when to stay silent, when to speak up, not to win, but to uplift. That discernment is like a superpower in relationships. It builds trust, it calms storms before they start, and it shows a level of emotional intelligence that can't be faked. A woman doesn't have to wonder where she stands with a wise man because he doesn't play games. He has nothing to prove. He knows his worth, and he makes her feel worthy just by being consistent. When a younger woman smiles at an older man, sometimes she's reacting to more than what she sees. She's responding to what she feels. She may not be able to describe it, but something about him just feels solid, grounded, and real. That's the pull of wisdom. It doesn't advertise, it doesn't chase, it doesn't need applause. It's like a campfire in the cold. It draws people in without a word because it gives off warmth, light, and peace. Wisdom changes the way a man carries himself. He doesn't compete. He doesn't chase youth. He embraces where he is, and that self-acceptance is magnetic in itself. Because people aren't drawn to perfection, they're drawn to realness. They're drawn to someone who's been through the storm and didn't let it steal his gentleness. That's what wisdom does, and that's why it draws people in quietly and powerfully every time. Masculine polarity is stronger with time, and it becomes more defined, more powerful, and more attractive as a man grows into himself. In youth, masculinity is often raw, untamed, and sometimes misguided. It can come across as aggression, arrogance, or overcompensation, but with time, experience, and self-awareness, that same masculine energy becomes focused, grounded, and magnetic. It's no longer about trying to dominate or control. It's about embodying presence, direction, and strength in a way that doesn't need external validation. Masters my skills because it's been a constant theme in my prior counseling that as a man matures, he begins to shed the confusion and insecurity that once clouded his sense of identity. He no longer measures himself by polarity in the context of masculine and feminine energy is the contrast between the steady and the flowing, the still and the expressive, the grounded and the emotional. When a man becomes deeply rooted in his masculine essence, he creates a natural polarity that draws feminine energy to him like a magnet. Younger women often feel this pull without even understanding why. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it viscerally. A mature man doesn't need to be loud or flashy. His calmness speaks volumes. His silence is not empty, it's full of presence. He knows who he is. He walks into a room without seeking to be the center of attention, yet people notice. This is the energy of masculine polarity, still, strong, unwavering. Time does something powerful to a man. It chisels away the parts of him that are performative. The more years he spends learning, failing, loving, and hurting, the more he gets acquainted with the deepest parts of himself. He becomes less reactive, less needy, less attached to outcomes. This detachment doesn't make him cold, it makes him free. It allows him to show up fully without being controlled by his environment or by others' emotions. That emotional independence is incredibly attractive because it creates a space where women can fully relax into her femininity. Masculine polarity is about holding firm when the world is swirling around you. It's the ability to stay composed when emotions are high, to lead without controlling, to protect without suffocating, and to support without seeking anything in return. These qualities don't just appear overnight. They're cultivated over time. They require patience, pain, and personal growth. They require knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to wait. And most importantly, they require a man to know his mission and pursue it with quiet intensity. A man with strong masculine polarity doesn't chase, he attracts. He doesn't beg for attention because he knows his value. He doesn't need to convince a woman to stay because he's whole with or without her. That completeness is what makes him so desirable. Feminine energy wants to be near something it can trust, lean on, and feel safe with, not just physically safe, but emotionally and energetically. When a man stands in his mature masculine, he becomes that safety, not through dominance, but through inner strength. With time, a man begins to understand the power of his presence. He learns that his stillness can calm storms, that his decisiveness can ease uncertainty, and that his purpose can inspire trust. He doesn't get pulled into petty arguments or emotional games because he sees the bigger picture. He knows what truly matters, and he doesn't waste energy proving himself. This kind of man exudes respect without demanding it. He commands the room not through volume, but through energy. There's something about a man who has faced his own darkness, conquered his own demons, and come out on the other side, not bitter, but wiser. That journey builds a masculine edge that is impossible to fake. It changes how he sees women. It changes how he approaches intimacy. He's no longer looking to take. He's looking to give, to lead, to build. His relationships become less about ego and more about connection. That shift is powerful, and women feel it. Younger women often gravitate toward older men not because of age itself, but because of this polarity. They sense a depth, a direction, a certainty. In a world where most men are still figuring out who they are, a man who knows is rare and irresistible. His masculinity isn't toxic, nor is it performative. It's anchored, it's thoughtful, it's felt. And that's the kind of masculinity that makes a woman feel more like a woman. Not because he diminishes her, but because his strength allows her to let go of control, to soften, to feel safe being vulnerable. Masculine polarity isn't about superiority, it's about contrast. It's about a man becoming the kind of presence that amplifies everything around him. And that presence, that steady and unshakable energy, grows stronger with time. It's not in the muscles, the status, or the swagger. It's in the soul. It's in the discipline, the restraint, the wisdom to choose peace over pride, purpose over pleasure, and strength over show. That's what time gives a man if he lets it, and that's why his masculine polarity doesn't fade. It intensifies, it sharpens, and when he carries it with humility and purpose, the world takes notice, especially the feminine energy that has been looking quietly and deeply for exactly that. They radiate stability in a chaotic world, and that alone sets them apart in a society driven by noise, urgency, and constant distraction. In an age where everyone is rushing to keep up, prove their worth, and be heard, a man who stands firm, composed, and unshaken becomes magnetic without trying. He doesn't need to compete with the chaos because he has outgrown it. He has walked through enough storms to realize that peace is a power, not a weakness, and calmness is a choice, not a default. His presence feels different because it is different. You can sense it the moment he enters a room. He's not trying to be the loudest or the most impressive. He's not chasing attention or adjusting who he is to fit in. He carries a quiet confidence that says, I've been through enough to know who I am. That kind of energy is rare, and people are instinctively drawn to it. In a world that's constantly shifting economically, socially, emotionally, stability is attractive because it offers something people can lean on. It's like a lighthouse in a storm. It doesn't move, it doesn't shout, it just is solid, consistent, dependable. Younger women, especially those navigating the uncertainty and confusion that often comes with youth, are naturally drawn to this energy, not because of a calculated decision, but because stability offers them something many of their peers can't: safety, not just physical safety, but emotional and psychological security. A man who radiates stability sends a message without speaking: you don't have to manage me, I know how to manage myself. That's a rare comfort in a time where emotional volatility is normalized and inconsistency is often masked as excitement. Stability doesn't mean stagnation. It means reliability. It means a man who follows through on his word, who doesn't panic under pressure, who knows how to respond instead of react. He's not led by impulse, and he doesn't live at the mercy of his emotions. That self-control doesn't come from repression, it comes from experience. From making mistakes, learning hard lessons, and growing into someone who no longer needs to be ruled by chaos. That evolution shows in how he handles conflict, how he makes decisions, and how he holds space for others, especially women who crave presence more than perfection. There's a grounding effect that comes from being around a man like this. He doesn't escalate problems, he dissolves them. His energy brings balance not because he avoids hard conversations, but because he approaches them with maturity. He doesn't throw blame, he doesn't shut down, he listens, he speaks with clarity, he takes responsibility. That's what real strength looks like. It's not in the volume of his voice, but in the consistency of his actions. And in a world full of promises, with no follow-through, that level of stability is refreshing. Stability is also about emotional maturity. A man who radiates it isn't thrown off by a woman's feelings. He doesn't see emotion as weakness or drama. He's seen enough to know that emotions pass, and he doesn't make impulsive decisions based on temporary waves. That level of patience and understanding creates a safe emotional container for a woman to relax into. She doesn't have to second guess his mood. She doesn't have to decode his silence. He communicates clearly, consistently, and with care, and that alone builds deep trust. This kind of man doesn't rely on manipulation or games. He's not trying to create confusion or scarcity to increase his value. He knows that real intimacy is built on safety, not strategy. And when a woman experiences that energy, it changes her. It gives her permission to show up fully, to let go of defense mechanisms, and to be herself without fear of being punished for her vulnerability. That dynamic is rare, and it only exists where true masculine stability is present. Stability also shows in a man's lifestyle. He has discipline. He takes care of his body, his finances, his responsibilities. He's not perfect, but he's ordered. There's structure to his life, and that structure creates freedom, not just for himself, but for anyone who enters his world. You don't have to wonder where you stand with him because he's consistent. He doesn't operate on impulse or convenience. He operates on principle. And those principles aren't borrowed, they're forged from experience and refined over time. In relationships, this makes him incredibly dependable. He doesn't disappear when things get hard. He doesn't shut down when faced with complexity. He leans in, he stays grounded, and even when emotions run high, he maintains his center. That emotional leadership is one of the most powerful forms of attraction, not because it's controlling, but because it's calming. It makes people feel safe to open up, to connect, and to build something lasting. What separates the stable man from the rest is not the absence of chaos in his life, it's how he moves through it. He doesn't seek chaos for stimulation, and he doesn't allow it to dictate his behavior. He brings calm to the storm rather than becoming part of it. That ability to be still in turbulence, to remain kind in conflict, and to hold direction in confusion, that's what makes him magnetic. Not just to women, but to anyone who's tired of emotional whiplash and empty promises. In a chaotic world, the man who radiates stability becomes the anchor everyone hopes to find. And when a woman sees that, especially a younger woman, still navigating her own path, it resonates deeply, because what she's really looking for isn't perfection, it's peace. And that's exactly what a man with true stability brings to every space he enters. A smile isn't always flirtation. Sometimes it's admiration. In a world that often reads every glance, gesture, or expression through a narrow lens, it's easy to mistake a woman's smile for a sign of desire or seduction, but many times, especially when it's directed at an older man, that smile comes from a place of deeper appreciation. It's not always about romantic interest. It can be about presence. It's about energy, about recognition of something that stands out in contrast to the chaos around it. Sometimes that smile says, I see you not as an object, but as an example of maturity, of self-possession, of something calm and grounded in a loud and scattered world. There's something quietly powerful about a man who has grown into himself, who doesn't chase trends, who isn't seeking approval from every corner of the room. That kind of man isn't trying to impress, but he often impresses anyway. His very presence is different. He walks with intention, speaks with purpose, listens with full attention. And those qualities, rare as they are, do not go unnoticed, especially by younger women who may be surrounded by peers still figuring themselves out. A smile toward that older man might simply be an unspoken way of saying, there's something about you that feels whole. Admiration is a silent compliment. It often lives in subtle cues like a passing glance or a warm smile. It's not about seeking something, it's about acknowledging something. A younger woman might smile at an older man, not because she wants anything from him, but because she sees something in him that feels aspirational. Maybe it's how he holds himself. Maybe it's the ease with which he moves through life. Maybe it's the clarity in his eyes or the calm in his voice. Whatever it is, it doesn't ask for attention, but it earns respect. This dynamic is often misunderstood. We live in a culture that over-sexualizes even the most benign forms of interaction. But real admiration doesn't always come wrapped in attraction. It can be rooted in curiosity, in appreciation, in a desire to understand what makes someone so quietly powerful. A younger woman might wonder how he developed such poise, how he learned to say more with fewer words, how he cultivated that unshakable sense of self. And in that wondering, there's a natural warmth, a smile born not from flirtation, but from a kind of reverence. Older men who've done the inner work carry something different in their energy. It's not arrogance, it's not bravado, it's not performance, it's simplicity. It's strength without needing to be loud, it's confidence without ego. And that combination, especially when paired with humility, creates an undeniable presence. A presence that can inspire, a presence that earns a smile, not because it demands one, but because it creates an atmosphere of respect and appreciation. Sometimes that smile is a thank you, a silent gratitude for showing what real masculinity looks like, for modeling a kind of manhood that doesn't revolve around dominance or validation, but instead around groundedness, purpose, and integrity. In a world that often feels superficial and performative, seeing someone who is real, authentically and unapologetically themselves is refreshing. And that refreshment shows up in the form of a smile. Not a come on, not an invitation, just a simple acknowledgement of presence and power. And that's the thing about admiration. It often has little to do with how someone looks and everything to do with how they are, how they treat people, how they carry pain without bitterness, how they speak to others without needing to speak over them, how they maintain eye contact, stay composed in uncomfortable moments, and give attention without expecting anything in return. These are not traits that scream for attention, but they command it. They invite respect. And respect is often the root of real admiration. It's important too to recognize that admiration is deeply human. It crosses age lines, gender lines, and cultural lines. We are wired to notice strength, integrity, and presence when we see it. And a man who radiates these qualities will inevitably draw the eyes and the smiles of those around him. But interpreting those smiles through a narrow, self-serving lens misses the depth of what's actually being expressed. Not every smile is a signal to pursue. Sometimes it's a mirror reflecting what's being offered, a steady presence in an unstable world. Many older men underestimate the impact they can have simply by being authentic, composed, and kind. They don't realize that their years, their lessons, and their lived experience have sculpted them into someone who naturally stands out. They may think they've aged out of significance in the eyes of the young, but often the opposite is true. A younger woman might smile because she sees him as a lighthouse, a symbol of maturity in a sea of uncertainty. She might be looking at someone who reminds her that real strength is quiet, that confidence can be calm, and that power doesn't need to be proved. So when that smile comes, it shouldn't always be interpreted through a lens of romance or seduction. Sometimes it's simply a moment of recognition, a young soul acknowledging a seasoned one. It's admiration, pure and simple. And while it may not lead anywhere romantic, it speaks volumes about how deeply presence is felt, how strongly quiet confidence is noticed, and how impactful a truly grounded man can be, even in the smallest, most fleeting of moments. But only if you carry yourself with dignity. That's the invisible line that separates admiration from discomfort, respect from suspicion, and attraction from avoidance. Dignity is not about being overly serious, stiff, or detached from others. It's about how you choose to carry yourself when no one's watching, and even more so when everyone is. It's how the quiet discipline that governs your choices, the restraint that holds your ego in check, and the character that stands firm, even in situations that could easily provoke something less refined. When a man ages, he has two paths: to become bitter and jaded, or to become wise and composed. Youth can be chaotic, defined by trial, error, and impulsiveness. But age offers the opportunity to rise above that, to evolve. And the men who are admired, respected, even quietly loved from a distance are those who have chosen to mature with dignity. They aren't just older, they're refined. They've learned to let go of the need to impress and instead live to express their values, to protect their peace, and to walk through life with a sense of inner honor. Younger women often notice this, even if they can't articulate it. There's a difference between a man who is older and trying to relive his youth, and a man who is older and embracing everything his years have given him. One feels like a performance, the other a presence. Dignity is what makes that presence stand out. It's not about fashion, money, or power. It's about grace, self-awareness, and the subtle strength of knowing who you are and refusing to compromise that for fleeting validation. It shows in how you handle rejection, in how you speak to those who can do nothing for you, in whether your words are measured or reckless, in whether your gaze is respectful or invasive. It's not something you can fake, because it isn't about surface behavior. It's about the state of your inner world. A man with dignity doesn't need to prove he's valuable. He simply lives in alignment with his values, and that congruence is what others admire. There's something incredibly magnetic about a man who respects himself. Not the kind of self-respect that borders on arrogance, but the kind that says, I've earned my peace, and I won't trade it for cheap attention. That kind of man doesn't chase. He doesn't try to manipulate. He doesn't rely on charm or force to get what he wants. He trusts that what is meant for him will respond to the energy he puts out. And that kind of trust is only possible when you carry yourself with dignity. It's especially important in the context of admiration from younger women. That admiration quickly fades or turns to discomfort if the man behind it doesn't uphold a sense of dignity. When a man mistakes that admiration for entitlement or starts acting on it in a way that's driven by ego, he doesn't just lose respect, he often creates resentment. Because the power of admiration lies in its purity. It exists only as long as the man it's directed toward remains centered, calm, and respectful of the boundaries that maintain his dignity. Dignity doesn't mean being passive or cold. It means having the discernment to know when to engage, when to let go, and when to walk away. It means being kind without being weak, open without being desperate, and strong without being aggressive. When a man lives like this, he becomes someone that others not only look up to, but someone they feel safe around. Because dignity isn't just about self-him. It's about the energy you bring into the lives of others. And a man with dignity is not swayed by temptation or driven by impulse. He doesn't confuse fleeting attention with meaningful connection. He knows that admiration is not an invitation, it's an acknowledgement. It's a nod from the world saying, we see how you've grown, we see the man you've become, and to honor that you must respond not with entitlement, but with continued integrity. Younger women often have a sharp instinct for authenticity. They can sense when a man's maturity is real and when it's a mask. They may smile at a man who carries himself with strength, wisdom, and presence, but that smile quickly fades if he undermines those very traits with inappropriate behavior or ego-driven choices, because admiration without dignity turns into disappointment fast. This is why dignity must be a daily practice. It's in how you talk to strangers, how you hold your posture, how you respond to criticism, and how you treat people who challenge you. It's not something you wear for the world, it's something you become through consistent, intentional living. And over time, that internal dignity radiates outward. It shapes how others perceive you, how they speak about you, and how they respond to your presence. When you carry yourself with dignity, you don't have to chase respect. It comes to you. People feel more at ease around you. They feel your groundedness. They trust your silence. They believe your word. And yes, sometimes they smile, not because they want anything, but because they see in you something rare, something reassuring, something that stands out in a world that too often confuses attention with value and noise with strength. It comes with healing. Dignity is the filter that turns admiration into inspiration. It ensures that what others see in you is real and that it lasts. It's what makes your presence matter not just for a moment, but long after you've left the room. Not every man chooses that path, but those who do will find that admiration becomes more than a passing glance. It becomes a quiet legacy. But only if you carry yourself with dignity. So the next time a younger woman smiles at you, don't be so quick to dismiss it or misinterpret it. That smile might not be flirtation, but a silent recognition of something rare in today's world: calm in the storm, confidence without arrogance, presence without performance. It might be her way of saying, I see the strength in your stillness. I see the weight of your experience. I see the man you've become. You've earned that smile, not by chasing youth, but by growing into yourself. So stand tall, walk with dignity, and understand this truth. Sometimes the most powerful kind of attraction is simply quiet admiration.